चालू करो ना. Hello. Hi guys. Can you hear me?
सर यस सर
Yes.
ज़्यादा करना है.
Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to our series of lectures. I think I started with nutrition, about malnutrition, obesity, and vitamin supplementations in few of my last lectures. Do you remember it? Yeah. Now, in next few lectures, we are going to talk on poisoning. Today, I am going to talk to you on poisoning as a general, how to approach to the patient, and in the next lecture, we'll address some specific poisons and some animal bites. Guys, I think you are all at home, and you know now we are facing a global crisis of coronavirus, and basically physicians, particularly intensive care physicians, are now in focus. So I think being a medicus, it's a big responsibility on our shoulder, and I think you all students should learn a lot of things out of this corona pandemic. About poisoning, any substance that produces toxic effects on the human body is called as poison. So any drug overdose even can cause poisoning. Yes, because it will cause a toxic effects. So even drug overdose is considered a drug poisoning. Remember, it is a fourth leading cause of mortality, particularly in rural part of the India. So it's still a major cause in our undeveloped part of the country. You know, road traffic accident is a major and first cause of death. It is followed by the poisoning. So second most cause of death is poisoning, and it is a still very neglected health problem. Why? Because of difficulty to diagnose it sometimes. And remember, the poisoning is largely preventable. If you could pick up the issues why patients are either homicidal or cerebral poisoning, and you intervene beforehand, you can prevent damages, morbidity and mortality because of the poisoning. So it is largely preventable. Majority of the poisoning cases are die within first 6 hours of the exposure. So remember, the early treatment, early diagnosis is very important for poisoning. What is the statistics in India? Almost 1 to 1.5 million cases occur every year in India, out of which almost 50,000 people die because of the poisoning. So roughly it is 5 to 6 persons per lakh population die due to acute poisoning. For the common modes, almost 50% time it is suicidal, and equal number of patients are having accidental poisoning. And the route of exposure largely is almost in 88 to 90% patient. It is the oral route by which people get poisoning. The agents, the household agents causes around 45% of the poisons. Drug causes 18%. Agricultural pesticides, which is very common in rural area, is around 12 to 13%. Industrial chemicals causes around 9%. Animal bites around 5%. Plants, unknown poison and miscellaneous poisons are amongst 1 to 2 to 5% agents which causes poisoning. Pesticides, most commonly organophosphate poisoning is very common, which is used for over the plants to kill the pests. So it is almost 70% time it is organophosphate. Rat poisoning causes 13% patients. Pyrethroid 7%, carbamate 6.5%, and organochlorine around 2.5% patients. When a patient of poison comes to a hospital, how to approach? So first is identification of poison is very important. How you can identify which poison probably patient has consumed? It depends mostly on the history if it is available. If history is not available, then because of patient maybe not conscious enough to tell, nobody is asked the patient to tell the history. Patient is brought in unconscious state. He is lying alone in the home. So in that case, there are some circumstantial evidences like a smell, color of the poison, vomitus, and some tablets which probably patient has taken. There are some circumstantial evidence you have to look for, and then you can identify poison based on the signs and symptoms which we are going to learn. Then always suspect some alternative diagnosis or differential diagnosis when you can't clearly diagnose etiology of this patient who is brought to the hospital or a poison. Always identify comorbidities whether patient is having diabetes, hypertension, heart disease or renal failure because that may add to your prognosis and treatment strategies. Then as soon as you identify, initially evaluate the patients, then you offer a treatment, and lastly, when you treat the patient successfully, these all patients require good psychological counseling. So that is the overall approach by which we can treat these patients. What treatment we should have? Foremost thing is assess the vital signs, and if patient is in very bad condition, always start with ABC. What is ABC of any serious patient is look for airway, look for breathing, and look for circulation. So look for whether patient is having breathing properly, whether there is a airway is obstructed or not, and whether his circulation is present or not by checking the pulse. So if patient's vital parameters are not stable, try to stabilize it. Start IV oxygen, maybe a monitor. Then after stabilizing the patient, the most important thing is removal of unabsorbed poison. Remember, uh, it is a best chance that patient will have that if you remove the poison before it is absorbed in the body. Remember, poison can get absorbed through skin and eyes also, not only in GI tract. So decontamination of GI tract, skin and eyes is also important. How you can decontaminate the skin by just clean the skin with water and take out all the clothings of the patient. Then use of antidote. If the specific antidote is available, use it for that poison. Then observe the patient, dispose it to a proper center where he can be managed. Then you have to keep focusing on enhanced removal of the poison from the body if it is already absorbed and patient reaches late to you, and the supportive management or care you have to offer to the patient. History is very important, and remember, patient may not be very cooperative or conscious enough to tell the history. So you may have to depend on his friends, relatives uh, for knowing the clear history. Then the nature of the poison, which is a pesticide, insecticide, or drug consumption. Then how much quantity patient has consumed. That is also very important because if quantity is in large amount, then probably patient is has more sick and more problematic. Then also ask the history of mode and type of exposure. What is the mode of exposure? That is of oral route, inhalation route, or by any other route, by IV injections also a person can get a poisoning. Then type of exposure is very important because if patient comes early, you can aggressively remove that poison. If patient comes late, you know that it is already absorbed poison and your treatment strategy changes with the type of exposure. You should also ask whether patient has got vomitings before he reaches the hospital. Vomiting itself removes the poison from the body, and it is always a good thing that patient has vomiting. You know that most of the poison is already vomited. When to suspect a poisoning? Remember, any sudden, unexplained, unpredictable illness in a healthy young patient, you should suspect a poisoning. Then there is history of travel, maybe a bus travel or train travel, where patient has consumed unknown some food from an unknown traveling accompanying person, and then it becomes ill or become unconscious. Lot of people give some biscuits or some sweets while traveling, which causes some poisoning, and then they take out your pockets or mobile phones. So, history of traveling and becoming ill after a traveling on a healthy young patient, you can suspect a poisoning. Then, a recent history of consumption of unknown drink or food item is also very important. Then you can suspect poisoning in a person who is depressed and taking some antidepressant or is suffering from acute stress. So this history is also important. Then presence of insecticide or pill box near the patient. Sorry, is a clear indication that probably he has consumed that insecticide or some drugs or pills which has caused this problem. So in this situation, you can suspect probably that this patient is suffering from a poisoning. Again, the management is resuscitate the patient, start with airway breathing circulation, then do baseline clinical examination, quick but thorough clinical examination, like as I told you, pulse, blood pressure, circulation, level of consciousness, and probably pupillary signs in poisoning patient, assessment of sensorium, vital signs, and if some signs which are uh, very sick signs like patient's blood pressure is low, patient is gasping breathing, patient is unconscious, you have to intervene immediately rather than taking a detailed examination of this patient. So, assessment of serious vital signs and appropriate intervention is very important. Pupillary signs are very important in poisoning. Uh, Constricted pupil or meiosis is common with uh, organophosphate poison or carbamide poisoning. It also occurs in narcotic, barbiturate, phenothiazine poisoning or clonidine and phencyclidine poisons. Then dilated pupil or mydriasis is common with atropine poisoning, LSD poisoning, monoamine oxidase inhibitors, nicotine, amphetamine, antihistamines, and poisoning with tricyclic antidepressant. So, pupil examination is very important, which can give us a direct clue that whether patient is having some sort of poison or not. Once you stabilize the patient, resuscitate the patient, do routine examination like blood counts, renal function, liver functions, then electrolytes, urine examination, blood sugar levels. Most of the poison may act on liver and kidneys, and you may get altered liver functions and kidney function. So you may have to think of some support organ in such patients. So need to do a routine investigation. Remember to preserve samples of vomitous, urine, gastric lavage, skin scraping for toxicological screening, and sometimes these samples may require for your medical legal purposes. So, after routine examination, you should preserve the samples. The main treatment is removal of unabsorbed poison. Unabsorbed poison should be removed as early as possible. You remove the cloth. Then gastric lavage is very important. Put a Ryle's tube and do the lavage with a cold saline. Remember, you should not put a Ryle's tube when patient has consumed some corrosive poison. Remember, then remove the patient from the room, like some gas poisoning or carbon monoxide poisoning. You have to remove that patient from that room first, so that patient will not have continuous absorption of that poison through the inhalation. Wash skin and eyes. So it will also remove the unabsorbed poison from the skin and eyes. So removal of unabsorbed poison is very very important. Initially, people used to induce vomitings, but it is found to be a more dangerous and it will cause aspiration pneumonitis and some damage to the patient. So, induction of vomiting is not recommended in present treatment schedule. Then, when you initially treat the patient, stabilize the patient, then remove the poison as much as possible, as early as possible, and then use antidotes if available. Antidotes are the agent which counteract the effect of poison. Specific antidotes are always not available for all these poisons. So you have to depend on some non-specific antidotes and supportive management. Non-specific antidotes are like activated charcoal is mechanically absorbs and it retains the poison with its pores and only useful if you eat is in first 4 to 6 hours of poisoning. You can use it 50 grams per dose every 4 hourly. Then you can use potassium permanganate. It also a non-specific antidote by its oxidizing property. It is a non-specific chemical antidote and it can be used through gastric lavage with 1 to 2000 dilution. There are some specific antidotes are available. Atropine is an antidote for organophosphorus poisoning. Flumazenil is for benzodiazepines. Hydroxycobalamin for cyanide poisoning. Naloxone is available for morphine poison. Then BAL or dimercaprol for chelating of arsenic or mercury poisoning. Calcium sodium edetate is an antidote for lead poisoning. Despheroxamine is an antidote for iron. D-penicillamine for heavy metals like lead, gold, mercury and copper. And vitamin K for warfarin poisoning. So these are the specific antidotes available to treat the poisoning. Then toxidromes. Toxidromes is a group of signs and symptoms and or characteristics effects associated with exposure to a particular substance or class of substance. So toxidromes are actually it is a maybe a question in your examination about the toxidromes. The signs and symptoms or a characteristic effects occurring after exposure to a particular substance. Toxidrome is a combination of physical findings or findings from ancillary testing which may result from any poison or drug overdose. So it's a physical finding or finding from the ancillary testing in addition to signs and symptoms. So common toxic syndrome or toxidromes are if toxidromes are adrenergic, then you get hypertension, hypothermia, tachycardia, tachypnea. The end organ effects are agitation, arrhythmias, diaphoresis, mydriasis and seizures. This is common with amphetamines, caffeine poisoning, cocaine poisoning, ephedrine, pseudoephedrine and theophylline poisoning. So adrenergic signs and symptoms occurs in these common drugs or toxins. Then anticholinergic toxidromes causes hyperthermia and tachycardia. The features are agitation, delirium, decreased or absent vowel sounds, dry and flushed skins, mucous membrane, mydriasis, blurred vision, seizures and urinary retention, which is common with first generation H1 receptor antagonist, belladonna poisoning, then cyclic antidepressant, muscle relaxant. These are the common drugs which causes anticholinergic toxidromes. Then cholinomimetics toxidromes occurs causes tachycardia or bradycardia. End organ effects are agitation, delirium, coma, lot of sequences from the respiratory tract, that is bronchoria, bronchospasm, diaphoresis, fasciculation, lacrimation, constricted pupils, urination, diarrhea, vomiting, and seizures. It is common with the carbamate poisoning, cholinesterase inhibitors like organophosphate poisoning, then opiate or opioid syndromes, which causes bradycardia. Bradycardia. Hello. Yes. Bradycardia, apnea, hypotension, or hypothermia. The end-organ effects of opiate poisoning are central nervous system depression, hypotonia, meiosis, and mydriasis. It is common with codeine poisoning, fentanyl poisoning, opioids like morphine, and central nervous system depression drugs. Sedative and hypnotic toxinomes causes again bradypnea, apnea, hypotension, or hypothermia. The end organ effects are ataxia, imbalance of the gait, then depression of central nervous system, hyporeflexia, slurred speech, stupor or coma. Sedatives are appearance causes this type of end organ symptoms, which is common with barbiturate poisoning, benzodiazepines, bromides, ethanol, and propofol, and multiple poisons. So, after understanding these toxidromes, the treatment, uh, further treatment is how you can enhance the removal of poison from the body. First and foremost thing is adequate hydration. So, adequate hydration can remove poison with increased urination. Remember, you have to avoid overhydration in patients who are having underlying heart disease, severe anemia, heart failure, or pre-existing renal failure, which will lead to a fluid overload and cardiac failure. A forced diuresis with furosemide and or mannitol is again one way to remove the poison from the body. Then acid diuresis is important for amphetamine poisoning. Alkaline diuresis is useful for aspirin and barbiturate poisoning. So forced diuresis you can attempt to remove the poison from the body. Then urine alkalization done by administration of soda bicarb or IV potassium useful for phenobarbital and salicylate poisoning. So hydration, forced diuresis, and urinary alkalization. These are the few ways by which you can remove the poison from the body. Then sometimes you may have to think of dialyzing the patient, particularly patients who are having small molecule poisons which can be removed by dialysis. Remember, hemodialysis is not very effective in a patient with poison in a lipid soluble patient or poison which has got significant protein bound. So, if a patient comes to very late and patient's poison is protein bound, hemodialysis may not be very effective. Hemofiltration usually does not offer any advantage over hemodialysis, but it is required for large molecules like metal chelating complex. As compared to peritoneal dialysis, hemodialysis is more effective. Then exchange transfusion has a role for poisoning cases complicated by massive hemolysis, like hydrogen sulfide poisoning, which is associated with methemoglobinemia. So you remove the blood from the body and give a blood transfusion from fresh blood transfusion to the patient, and this is the way exchange transfusion can treat methemoglobinemia. Then supportive management includes patient. Many cases poisoning agent may be discarnable. Is often specific and often specific antidote does not exist. So you have to give supportive management. Patient may require IV fluids, then ventilation, support to maintain the blood pressure, good nutrition, infection control. This is the supportive care which is required to the patient. The mainstay of management of such cases is supportive care supplemented by prevention and prompt treatment of complication. So you can prevent complication secondary to these poisons, and prompt treatment of complications is also important, as there is no specific antidote is available for such many of the poisons. As I told you, at last, all these patients require psychological support. These patients are having if patient is having a suicidal tendency, then it is likely that patient may try suicide again with a poisoning. So patients who are at risk for further self-harm must be given suitable psychological assessment. Psychiatric advice should be sought before discharge of all the patients. Remember, the patients who are likely to cause self-harm are category of patient with male sex, elderly population, patient who are unemployed, they already keep suicidal note, recent bereavement, presence of terminal illness, continuous high pain because of some malignancy or some illness. These patients are likely to terminate their life by poisoning, and history of depression. So this category of patients likely to cause self-harm and they require psychological support and treatment. Thank you. Most of the slides which I presented today is from API textbook of medicine and Harrison Principles of Medicine, and some of the references from the uptodate.com. Thank you very much for patiently listening. In the next lecture, we'll talk about the poisons like insecticide poison and snake bite and animal bites. So maybe next Saturday at the same time we'll meet again. If you have any questions, please type it out and let me know. Any questions, please? No questions, then we'll stop the presentation. Thank you very much.